I'm talking about Psalms this summer. I should preach with my coonskin hat on, but if you weren't here last week, you wouldn't understand it. So, and then that's all you'd look at would be the hat. So, but we're talking about the rhythms of life. I'm going to use the drum today. The rhythms of life is what we're talking about. Preaching from the Psalms. The Psalms, as Dr. Jeter so suggested, follow a rhythm for life or a pattern for life. And so, we want to look today for a rhythm in Psalm 24. What is it saying about our lives? Will you put that up on the screen? The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. I'm tempted to stop there. The world and those who live in it, for he has founded it on the seas and established it on the rivers. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? And who shall stand in his holy place? Those who have clean hands and pure hearts, who do not lift up their souls to what is false and do not swear deceitfully, they will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from the God of their salvation. Such is the company of those who seek him, who seek the face of the God of Jacob. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty. The Lord, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. You know, I could hear the voice of every old person in my life when I was growing up. I sat in the rain one day. It was about a 45-minute downpour in East Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains inside the national park, and I sat at a pull-off by the river. It was toward the end of our vacation, and I had asked all the children what they wanted to do before vacation was over. They had been faithful to do the things that I asked, pretty much. And so I wanted to know what made them happy. What did they want to do? And my son, it didn't surprise me at all. He said, I want to tube the river again, Dad. But I want to tube more of it. So this time we drove 2 miles up the river. And we pulled off at the little roadside parking place. And we waited for the rain to quit. And about 45 minutes later it did. And the sun came out. It does that in Tennessee. And I got out and I looked down the embankment into the river, and all of the white water and the rocks that stick out that make the white water was gone. The river was in just 45 minutes nearly up out of its banks. And I heard the voice of all the wise old folks in my life and in my childhood saying, don't you get in that water after a rain. Well, my son didn't hear those voices, and before I could sort out who was saying this and who wasn't, my son, and he's always been that kid, you know, he ran headlong into every experience of life, and he's got his tube under his arm, and he was nearly in the water before I could stop. So I said to my wife, I'll see you 2 miles down the river, and I chased him down into the water. That ride couldn't have ended soon enough for me. I love tubing. I love whitewater. I love Class 4 and Class 5 rapids. I love it. That ride couldn't have ended soon enough. The first thing that happened was we saw a tree that had just fell in the water during the storm. And we both ended up tangled up in it. And I'm shouting ahead, don't get out of the tube, because I remember what happens when you get out of the tube. You end up in the paper tomorrow. Somehow we got loose from that, and then I fell out of the tube, and there I am in the rapids, and I'm hanging onto the tube, and I'm feeling around with my toes for the bottom, and you know what I found, don't you? Thump, 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 3 times right in the shins. When you fall in the water, fetal position works best. Tuck your knees up under your chin, hide your shins from the rocks that you can't see under the water, because it's not the right way to tread the water, to ride the current. But there we were. 2 miles later, my wife was peering around the corner and the bend in the river and just anxiously waiting. She had gotten a little worried, and I again, couldn't have ended soon enough. They told us not to do it, but we did it anyway. The Cherokee people in those mountains say that there's healing in those waters. And I believe them. Not just because they're clear and clean to drink, but because there's healing in the waters. I believe them. Healing comes from some of the most unexpected places. Wow, right on cue. Could I have set that up any better? Sometimes you inherit a grandchild and it starts clearing some blemishes in the family up. Healing comes from some really different places. You know, last weekend as we were performing for people in Roswell, New Mexico, I remembered the words that my bass player, Marcus Tatum, told me. Marcus suffers from diabetes in a very severe way, and from all of the complications that you can imagine that go along with diabetes. And Marcus told me during the rehearsals, I've known this man for 20 years, during these rehearsals for this job, he told me something I'd never heard him say. He said, I play all that I can. Because when I'm playing, he said, it's then and only then that I forget how much I hurt and I forget how dire my situation really is. For just a few moments. You might need to find them. So there we were up on the stage, and it's one of those moments when Stevie has the keyboard ride, and I sink back into the bed of the music, and I pull the volume knob back to 8, and I lean over next to Marcus, and I find my place in the pocket, playing with the bass player, and he's just following that kick drum, and everything was great with the world. And Marky looks at me, and in his delightful childlike way, he says, I love it, Doug, I love it. And I saw it. I saw the healing. I saw it. Marky was healed right there. Now, after the gig, the pain comes back. But for that moment, everything's well. I saw it so clearly that the next morning, when my other bass player, I'm the only guy in Roswell with 2 bass players, and both of them aren't well. Either of them aren't well, however you say that. And so there, Chuck was playing with me on stage, and we caught that groove, and I remembered Marky, and I remembered Friday night, and I leaned over to Chuck, and I said, don't that feel good? And he said, yes. And I said, it's healing, brother. It's healing. Receive it. Receive it. In a strange place, though. I mean, no Jesus coming by, no hands on people, no religious words. Gosh, it was mostly about us. But then again, it wasn't. Walter Brueggemann is probably one of the greatest preachers of the Psalms. And he talks about how in certain environments, like say in the blues clubs, in the nightclubs, that people are there and they are singing and laughing and yes, drinking and doing whatever they do to combat the pain, but they're saying it out loud. They're singing about addiction, and they're singing about divorce, and they're singing about dying and poverty, and they're naming all of the things that seek to define them and control them, and they refuse to let it. And in the naming for just a moment, they have power. For a moment, there's healing. It comes in the strangest places. I saw it for 20 years of nightclubs. I saw it before I ever thought about preaching a sermon. And then again, though, the earth and everything in it is God's. It's all God's music, all of it. It's all God's healing. Joseph Campbell talks about the rhythm of the universe. And he sees it in numerology in strange ways. But he talks about the rhythm of the universe, and his final statement is this, that when you look at how long it takes for the equinox to process completely through, and you divide it by certain numbers like 12 and 2, I'll tell you it's trick math, but it comes down to something very beautiful. He says that apparently a human being, when at rest, the heart beats 1 time a second, 60 times a minute. And so it is, he says, that you are in rhythm, perfect rhythm, with the rhythm of the universe. Wow. I'm a little bit manipulative, so I wrote a song called the Hydrocodone Blues. And I purposely recorded the song at 60 beats per minute so that I could trick listeners into falling into the rhythm of the universe while laughing at their silly hydrocodone addictions. I've been looking in your medicine chest. But then again, I've been through that myself. I write songs because I experience things. I see them, I observe them, and I also go through it myself. And so at times I have taken painkillers, and I have been told by physicians straight up, you're doing it wrong. And I didn't know you could do it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Do you do this too? Do you take medicine so that you can still go to work? Because what my physician told me was you're supposed to go home and rest. I didn't give you the medicine so you could make it to work and do all the things you would have done had you been pain-free or free of illness or disease. Whatever the medication is, don't we want it to work now so that by 9 o'clock I can be in the office or on the job? After all, I don't want to miss a day's work. And the answer is rest, rest, rest. Did you know there's a cure for the common cold? I've been preaching it for years. I don't know why Johns Hopkins isn't down here interviewing me right now. And the cure is simple. Drink water. By the way, are you staying hydrated this summer? And rest. Most of us are doing too much. Would that be you? I mean, if you were very honest, would you say, I could do less? My life could be less complicated if I just gave up one thing on my agenda today. Most of us are doing way too much. Jackson Brown says, whatever we have to do to justify our lives before we die. And then he says, pray to God that he can let me slide. So I spent a week in the wilderness. You who know me know, and you've heard me talk about it, men's rites of passage. But one of the things that they were trying to teach us men out in the wilderness for that week was this rhythm to life and this rhythm to the universe. This understanding that it all belongs to God and that I am not God. Life is hard, they told us, and you're not in control. You're not God. And don't waste your time. Don't waste your time trying to make life easy. But go with the flow. Stay with it until it teaches you what it has to teach you. In the movie, The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada, the character in the movie, who is a young, uninitiated, very immature male working as a Border Patrol agent, becomes a murderer. And the other main character, played by Tommy Lee Jones, decides he is going to make this person make right what he has done wrong. I don't like those words, but it's part of the movie. And so he kidnaps the young man and forces him to dig up the body of the immigrant that he has murdered. And then they're going to travel to Mexico. You've seen this plot probably in a Lonesome Dove series. And there they're going to give him a proper burial. And on the route, everything that can go wrong for this young man happens. He tries to escape. He's bitten by a rattlesnake. And there, right before crossing the border, he is at death's door. And Tommy Lee Jones won't let him die. He has to live long enough to travel back to Melquiades' hometown and give him a proper burial. And so this man who is feverish and having delusions from rattlesnake venom, and he's passed out across a horse as they're going into the Rio Grande River to cross into Mexico, and then he comes awake. And then he jumps off the horse with his hands tied, barefoot, and he is screaming every obscenity that he can think of at Tommy Lee Jones. I won't go. I don't need this. I won't. That's as much as I can clean it up for you. I won't. And Tommy Lee just lassos him. Pow! Pulls the rope snug, ties it around the saddle horn, and goads the horse, and into the river they go. And don't you know, this poor young man, Mike Norton, goes into the river protesting even louder, hands tied, face first. And he comes out with pretty much a mouthful of muddy water. That's what he got for all this protest. He ends up on the other side of the river, however it works. There's a flow to things, I used to tell my son. There's a flow to life. My son said to me one day, and when he was a teenager and he still knew everything, and he said, Dad, I don't take crap off anybody. And I said, son, most of life is going to be about how well you take crap off of people. So you can do this with your mouth wide open and you can come out with a mouthful of muddy water, or you can decide that your agenda is not always God's agenda, that you are not God, and that sometimes life is hard and that it teaches us painful lessons. And when the pain comes, Richard Rohr says, stay with it until it has taught us what it is there to teach us. Caution, don't hang on to it too long. Don't play the victim. When it's time, let it go. But we want to hurry through it. We want to take the pill now. The pain will go away. I'm at work by 10 o'clock, dehydrated on the job and producing so people will love me and so that I can be in control of my little universe. Stay with it until it has taught you what it is there to teach you. Pain is important. Jesus says your enemies are important. They will tell you what your friends won't tell you. Embrace them. Listen. Even our pain and even our suffering are gifts. But be clear about this. God does not cause these kinds of things in order to teach you or to bring you to some awareness. God does not cause this. Neither does God prevent this. No one is exempt. But know this, that God is in it. God is in it because the earth and everything that is in the earth is God's. The world and all those who live in it, and all, by the way, means all. You know, I talk to people who say, I don't believe in God, and I say, well, that's fine. If God is not there, then you were right, and if God is there, it doesn't matter what you believe. You can say I don't believe in gravity, but if you jump out of a building without a parachute or something to help you, reality is reality. And God is in all reality. God is in all of creation. As best as I can tell, looking again at the revelation of God in Jesus Christ, I think that Jesus is trying to point me toward a God who is wrapped up in moments of beauty, moments of nonviolence, moments of compassion, moments of order, moments of forgiveness, moments of healing, moments of life, that Jesus points me continually toward this God. And it's important because God is in fact moments of beauty set against a rugged and sometimes ugly creation. God is in the moments of nonviolence set against a very violent world and a very violent creation. Moments of compassion in our struggle to survive when my focus is normally on me and not on others. And moments of order amidst all of the chaos. Moments of forgiveness in a world that harbors and remembers and can't possibly forget sometimes. Moments of healing in a world where the reality is that death is final and decay happens. And here is the biggest mind-boggler of all. God is not only in the beauty, but in the ruggedness of it all. God is not only in the non-violent moments, but God is in the violence of all of this massive creation and the power. And God is in the order, but also in the chaos. God works to bring about moments of order from chaos, finding only that God is in both the order and the chaos. God is in the pain and the deliverance from the pain. As Julian of Norwich said, sin and salvation are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. And so are you. And so are you. Not a very good God when it comes to the larger order of things. Best that we're not in control, folks. But in some way, little microcosms of the universe and the God that is all-powerful created it. Here we are, violent creatures as we are, capable of lucid little moments of compassion toward those we love. Jesus is calling us beyond just those who we love and saying, broaden that a little bit. Here we are, people of beauty amidst some very ugly, sinful, and stainful circumstances. And Jesus is saying, proclaim it. Take that beauty into this world. Light into darkness. Here we are, chaotic in our lives, and yet moments of order. Forgiving creatures who are unable to forget. And there are things that we cannot forgive. Did you know that? We work so hard because of that prayer. Forgive us as we forgive others. But there are things that are so grievous against the spirit of forgiveness that try as we may. Last week's sermon, if you were here, sometimes we just can't feel good about everything. That's who we are. Little glimpses of God to everyone else in the universe. Little pieces of beauty breaking through in the middle of the rhythms of our life. I think that's great. I don't know about you. I think that's great. Can we give it all to God? Can you believe it? That this world and every experience and everything is God's. He doesn't cause it. He's not out to teach you a lesson, but to walk with you through it. And everyone in this world are God's people. All means all. Now there's a rhythm for life right there that will preach from day to day as you walk through life, having coffee with your friends, sharing meals with your family, and expressing your faith and asking the hard questions. That will sustain you there. In that, may God have all of the glory. May the beauty be yours to enjoy and to savor forever. Amen. Would you pray with me now?